Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's an honor to me to open the 12th Yalta European Strategy meeting and a great pleasure to see a lot of my friends and partners, lots of friends and partners of Ukraine. We have gathered today to look how new Ukraine fate affect Europe and affect the world. Back in 2010, one of my dear friends, the President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, uttered very important words in his State of the Union speech as the President of the European Commission. He said, addressing all Europe, "We will not only succeed if whether acting nationally, locally, or regionally, we think European." In winter 2013-2014, Ukrainians were thinking European and rose up against tyranny and oppression. They opted for the European values: democracy, rule of law, respect of human rights and dignity, which they are shared mentally and belonged historically. Let me remind you that European Union flag was also sprinkled with Ukrainian blood. And this is how new Ukraine was born. Yet, some thought it differently. Russia, which had failed to become an attractive soft power, unleashed its military power to restrain Ukraine's quest for the modernization, Ukraine's quest for the European integration. By the aggression against sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, Russia has actually challenged the entire democratic world. Ukraine and its allies are preventing Russia from growing its aggression and stretching its deadly neo-imperial ambitions further. I think it's clear that an independent democratic Ukraine anchored in the system of European values is the cornerstone to security and stability in Europe and in the whole world. Once this cornerstone gets undermined, the European and global security foundation will be shattered. 3 days ago, also delivering his State of the Union speech, new President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said, "If the European Union wants to promote a more peaceful world, it needs more Europe and more union in its foreign policy. And this is most urgent toward Ukraine." This is very promising that Europe keep thinking European. Dear friends, last year I spoke at this forum a week after the truce was concluded in Minsk. I shared with the audience that I felt much relief not receiving daily heartbreaking news from the front line and about losses of the lives of Ukrainian civilian and Ukrainian soldiers. Unfortunately, it was only a short respite. Russia spiraled the violence to get its way. However, we have been thinking and acting European. I have promised that I will bring peace and prosperity to Ukraine, and I do my best to keep my word, whether and whatever price I should pay. The recent Normandy format talks 2 days ago strengthening my feeling of cautious optimism. The ceasefire in place for the almost 2 weeks and not a dream anymore. Even more, I want to declare that today is the first day for 1.5 years that during 24 hours we do not have one single shelter. Congratulations. In spite of the overwhelming military advantage of the Russian army and enormous military budget, which is, Natalka, more than 30 times bigger than Ukrainian, even the budget of the year 2015. Ukrainian heroes are keeping the defense in the Donbass and making Russia to pay just price for the escalation of the conflict. It took us only a year to build one of the strongest and one of the bravest armies on the continent. Next year we will increase military budget to counter more effectively and resolutely external threats. However, its sole goal will be to protect Ukraine from any sort of aggression. Let me remind you that during late spring, early summer months, almost all geopolitical and military experts around the world predicting in unison that the July-August, the whole world could have witnessed another bloody large-scale offense of the Russian armed forces against Ukraine. Synergy of the heroism of the Ukrainian soldiers, officers and generals, as well as the volunteers with the tireless diplomatic efforts to get support of our European and transatlantic partners, has made it possible to avert the most apocalyptic scenario. However, the drama is still far from being over, as the Russian aggressor is still standing with the dozens of thousands of troops and countless heavy weapons, tanks, artillery, multiple rocket launch systems, missiles, and other military equipment not only at our gates, but also on our soil. Nevertheless, I understand that the political and diplomatic settlement is unfortunately the only possible way. Ladies and gentlemen, lack of early and proportional response leads to ever more aggravated consequences. Illegal annexation of Crimea without immediate strong response from the international community encouraged Kremlin to go further. These days, green men are landing in the hundreds in Syria, inspiring more violence in the Middle East and provoking ever-growing exodus of people, mostly to the European Union. The Crimea has begun a military operation base for Russia to further destabilize Black Sea and Mediterranean in the global confrontation with the West. Could you imagine that only 2 years ago, all of us have a brilliant meeting in Yalta? And I'm dreaming that in a very short period of time, all of us can return back. It is our purpose. Dear friends, now Ukraine is changing Europe since Russian aggression against new Ukraine, and it's become a test for European, a test for solidarity, a test for unity, a test for freedom and for democracy, a test for adherence of common values and principles. To pass this test, we have to translate our common thinking in our common acting. We must sharpen all instruments at our disposal to compel Russia to abandon its power politic game, to come back to the politics of respecting the law. First, we must make clear that not only current sanctions will stay in place as long as Russia occupies the Crimea and fuels turmoil in the Donbass, but also enhanced restrictive measures will follow if Russia further obstructs the settlement process. We must drive Russia to follow the logic of Minsk agreement. We have to prevent fake election in the Donbass, as it will ruin the Minsk process once again. It can happen just at the 18th of October and 1st of November, the same way like last year Russia killed the first Minsk process, providing illegal fake election on the 2nd of November last year. And I think that we must to ensure that Ukrainian citizens held captives in the cellars in the Donbass and in the cells in Russia, including Nadia Savchenko and Oleg Sentsov, be set free as soon as possible. Second, Now it's a high time to discuss the possibility to deploy an operation in the Donbass to support due implementation of the Minsk Agreement. It can help us to achieve two key objectives for restoring peace in Donetsk and Lugansk region: full withdrawal of the occupation forces of the Russian forces from Ukrainian territory and close Ukrainian-Russian border. This is the two main preconditions for peace and stability in Donbass. We don't have any civil war. We don't have any inside conflict. This is very simple. We have an aggression against Ukraine, an occupation of the independent Ukrainian states. And the aggressor, we should make it absolutely clear, is Russia. Third, it is also a high time to join our efforts toward amending institution and instrument that serve principle and norm of the international law, such as particular a veto right of Russia in the United Nations Security Council. Russian aggression against Ukraine has shown vividly their flaws, and I hope that we will start the relevant discussion during upcoming 70th session of the United Nations Security Council and United Nations General Assembly, because Russian aggression against Ukraine and Russian occupation of the Crimea completely ruined post-war security system, make it absolutely ineffective, the system which created and based on the Security Council of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the last year has been incredibly tough. Resisting Russian aggression, we have been undertaking tireless efforts to reform Ukraine. Decades of preceding stagnation and lack of reform have also worked against us. However, Ukraine showed all strength and determination to turn away the defeat. We took the hardest challenge as an opportunity to jumpstart the transformation of the country, to eliminate our skeleton of the closet, such as the corruption, to change from inside. The ruling coalition assumed a tremendously difficult job. The Ukrainian people are thirsty for reform and will not forgive even minimum delay. The reforms needed are systematic and deep. As such, as they are enormously hurting, while their effect does not come in one day. However, Ukraine remains committed to the further progress in reform, and we understand that in the face of the immense challenges, the recipe of our success is unity within, unity of the country, unity among the political forces. This is the top priority, not to give the aggressor to destabilize the situation in Ukraine from inside. Honesty, responsibility of the all political forces, both inside the parliament and outside the parliament. Consistency, accountability for the people, and reliability for all our partners. I have no doubt that the Ukraine-EU Association Agreement, which is a comprehensive roadmap for our domestic reform, will enter into force very soon, and deep and comprehensive free trade agreement will come in force certainly without any delay from the 1st of January, year 2016. Russia's coward attempts to impede this historic event will fail. It is impossible to stop Ukraine's resolute drive toward the European home, our way back. The decentralization has become the most known and visible recent reform in Ukraine. The principle to transfer the power from the capital in Kiev to the local authorities, it is one of the features of the European democracies. Its effective implementation will lead to a significant boost of the welfare of the Ukrainian communities and region, as well as the improvement of the local self-governance, rising up possibilities and rising up the responsibilities. This is exactly the European manner we want to implement here. Under the current challenges, the decentralization is the strong safeguard against any attempt, including from outside, to impose the dangerous idea of the federalization and a way to prevent spiral of separatism in Ukraine. With the establishment of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the National Agency for the Corruption Prevention, we have set a proper institutional background for fighting corruption efficiently. And the symbol for fighting corruption is new patrol police, which you can see now on the streets of Kyiv, and now on the street of Lviv, on the streets of Odessa, and in a very near time on the streets of other Ukrainian cities. These bodies will get operational in the nearest future, will be equipped with the adequate tools to provide by the legislation. For the first time in the modern history, Ukrainian people have given their substantial support to the new patrol police. Comprehensive reform of other law enforcement agencies, like Prosecutor General Office, security sector, is unstoppable. In this regard, we highly appreciate significant support of our European and American and other international partners. Equally, I am satisfied with our efforts got translated on the critically important assistance that we have received from IMF and other financial institutions. Let me remind the words of the IMF Managing Director, Christine Lagarde, during her recent first in our history visit in Kyiv. Ukraine has surprised the world, surprised by what it managed to achieve in such a short period of time. This is not just something, this is impressive. And this is the message also for the internal politician who try to bring the country into the disappointment and impression. Yes, we have the problem, but we should unite it to solve all this problem. And this is the clear indication, these words, that we are on the right track. As a president, I will do my best to maintain the vector and the pace of the reform. We also do our best to help European political culture to flourish in Ukraine. Political ambitions sometimes go off scale, while tough reform could tempt the enhanced political ranking with speculation. On its part, Russia has changed the tactic and recently increased the effort to destabilize Ukraine from within. Unfortunately, political forces in Ukraine keep falling into this trap. However, our political condominium is getting more mature. Despite recent moves, the pro-European coalition has to keep reforming the country. We will prove that we will have become statesmen rather than remain politicians. I hope that the democratic political forces in Ukraine will not only tell their voters that they do and promise they will want to do for them, but they will also consistently work to secure the future for the generation to come. And this is mean thinking and acting European. I rely on this spirit will reign during the upcoming local election. What I can be sure already is that they will be free and fair. I have no doubt. And if there is an example of how democratic elections should be, that is exactly about these coming votes. 2 days ago, I signed a decree which rules the secure, equal opportunities for all the runners, prevent interference into the election process, engage international observers, including ODIHR, guarantee the proper condition for observers and election commissions, and ensure security for the voters. After democratic presidential and parliamentary election in year 2014, this electoral round is deemed to complete the total reboot of power in Ukraine. I expect that it will become point of no return to the Eurasian autocracy, which is aligned to Ukrainian national philosophy. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we rely on the continuous, sincere and committed support of our partners for Ukraine in our efforts toward peace and comprehensive transformation of Ukraine. We will have to think and act European today, but also urge our European partners to think Ukrainian a bit. Ukraine needs more than ever this thinking Ukrainian. We must seize the momentum of now and secure our common European future for tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed for your attention, and Slava Ukraini!